This is Michael Staab. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for listening in on this webinar. Greg and I decided to do this webinar because in working with our clients and also when we've been giving presentations at various conferences around the country, one of the things that seemed to be coming up a lot is, of course, most everybody, is what can I do to help manage the cost, particularly on specialty drugs. And one of the things that we also learned in having discussions with clients and potential clients is really how few people really were aware of how they may be able to use copay assistance programs and also specialty manufacturer coupons to help lower their costs or help manage their specialty drug costs. So that's why we wanted to kind of do a deep dive into these two programs, or to talk about these two programs with you to kind of maybe help shed some light on what you may be able to do to help manage your specialty drug costs. And on the first slide, and this is kind of more of just a general overview, I mean, most everybody that is on this call probably has seen the impact of specialty drugs on their planned drug spend. I mean, there's no question that each year for the last several years that there's been an increase every year on specialty drug costs. And this year, for example, in 2017, by the end of this year, it's anticipated that most plan sponsors will see about a 19% increase in their specialty drug spend. It's widely reported and not unusual, and I think if a lot of you have probably been following your trends, that clearly by the end of next year, it is anticipated that probably 50% of your drug spend will be on specialty drugs. So, and that will represent about 1 to 2% of your membership. So there will be a few number of people within your plan who will be driving 50% of your costs, and clearly there's only so much that you're going to be able to do when it comes to your discounts or possibly the special rebate that you may be getting to lower those costs, particularly when a lot of these specialty drugs are probably, some of the cancer drugs are going to be averaging about $100,000 a year. There's some muscular dystrophy drugs that are in the $300,000 range, and by and large, a lot of specialty drugs that are used on a regular basis for rheumatoid arthritis or muscular sclerosis are going to probably run $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year. So it's whatever you can do to help. Every little bit helps in terms of what you need to do to help lower the drug costs. And one of the things that we're hoping to shed some light on today is what you can do to utilize copay assistance programs, or having your members utilize copay assistance programs, as well as specialty manufacturers coupons to lower that spend. Right now, there are about 35 specialty drugs that have some form of a manufacturer coupon that is available. That number is really kind of varies by PBM. And part of this is what you need to do is probably whoever your particular PBM is really kind of ask them, what specialty manufacturer coupons are available, particularly that they're aware of through their specialty pharmacy. There are some PBMs that we've worked with this year that have maybe 19. There's some that have in the 30s, or some that have in the 80s. So it really depends upon who the PBM is, but by and large, currently there are about 85 specialty drugs that have some form of a manufacturer coupon that is available. The reality is that pharma and other charitable foundations spend billions of dollars each year on these specialty assistance programs and manufacturer coupons to help employers or members defray costs of prescription drugs to help reduce or eliminate out-of-pocket payments, which are really the deductibles, copays, and coinsurance. And this is particularly important where a lot of employers are really looking at moving to more of a high deductible health plan, and where members, particularly depending upon where you set that up, if it's $4,000 or $4,500, whatever your high deductible health plan is set at in terms of the deductibles that a member may have to meet. The question is one, it's also making sure that members have the availability of copay assistance if they can't afford those specialty drugs, because it could have an impact also on the medical side as well. A little bit, and on the next slide, I just want to kind of just do a little bit of a brief history regarding patient assistance programs and manufacturer coupons. Initially, a lot of the patient assistance programs were really developed in the early 90s in response to high drug inflation and public concern about high drug costs, which surprisingly continues in the 21st century. So things have not changed. And I think that initially, I know when Greg and I were at CVS Caremark, they had a foundation or a fund that they would, for example, if somebody was a hemophiliac, that they could ask for assistance to help them cover the cost of that drug of a hemophilia or the factor product that they were trying to get at or trying to get. But because of the various plan designs that some payers had, whether it be were they excluding certain things or not covering at a certain level, there were ways that people were trying to figure out how they could get money to help cover the cost of those drugs. And part of it was that there was a development of a lot of independent physician assistance programs. Patient assistance programs in the early 2000s were really created by pharma as a way to try to aid retirees, who were in the donut hole or because of Part D, as a way of helping them fund payment of those drugs without violating the anti-kickback statute. So that was one of the reasons why a lot of the foundations that were started by pharma were created, is to help retirees. Also, I think that it's fair to say that pharma has seen patient assistance programs and coupons as important ways for them to create brand loyalty and develop market shares for their particular drugs. I mean, that's one of the reasons why these programs have been created. If you can get somebody to create brand loyalty for a particular product, they will most likely continue to use that particular drug. But there have been concerns about exactly what kind of impact patient assistance programs and manufacturer coupons actually have on the drug spend for an employer. In fact, there was an article, I think in September, in the Chicago Tribune, which did a pretty big expose on just what the impact was on employers because of coupons and different programs that are available to their members to help lower the cost of those drugs. And I think that there is a general concern is do these coupons and do these types of programs actually increase the cost of the drug to the payer, and do they also have the effect of circumventing formulary compliance, particularly where an employer may have formula exclusions or a formula that they've adopted through their PBM, and does this allow the member to basically skirt that formulary compliance where they may be trying to do certain things to control that cost. There are three really areas we wanted to kind of cover today, because I think that sometimes these things get a little bit confused, and we wanted to kind of separate these out just to kind of make sure that everybody clearly understands what the differences are between the different coupons and patient assistance programs that are available. The first one is a retail copay coupons, which Greg is going to talk about, and we'll have an example here to show you what that impact looks like to an employer when there are retail copay coupons. But these are a little bit different than the patient assistance programs and especially manufacturer coupons that may be of benefit, and which is what we want to spend more time on this afternoon, talking about what you may want to think about in terms of taking advantage of those programs to lower your costs.
Thanks, Michael. This is Greg Madsen. So yeah, let's talk about the three different types. And we want to talk a little bit about the retail copay coupons to kind of differentiate those from what we're really talking about today on the specialty side. But the retail copay coupons, right, those are the ones that members get either in a magazine or they can get online and stuff, and it's really things that happen at a retail pharmacy. So they get a coupon for, manufacturer coupon of $15 that'll help them with their copay, for example, and when they go into their local pharmacy to get their prescription filled, the pharmacy will process the claim through the PBM and come back and say, you have a $25 copay, and they'll then present this coupon to the pharmacy and says, well, this coupon, I get $15 off my copay, And so the pharmacy then at that point will coordinate that copay benefit with the drug manufacturer to get the manufacturer to pay 15 of that $25 copay. So the member only has to pay $10 for that brand drug that they're receiving. So that really, has a big impact on the cost for the clients, because essentially you're end up paying for a brand drug and the member only has to pay their generic copay. So I'll have an example for that in just a minute. But then the patient assistance programs, where the R foundations, drug manufacturers are actually giving money to charitable foundations that help assist patients with their copays. And I think a lot of these came into being as the high deductible health plans came in and these large front-end deductibles started being put in place. These assistance programs really help people cover the cost of those high front-end deductibles. For example, we had a client who had one of the members was a cystic fibrosis patient, and the CF Foundation was offering $93,000 a year for Kalydeco. So we were able to structure their copay to really have this big front-end deductible, $93,000 front-end deductible to allow them to get access to that foundation money to help pay for their copay, to help lower the client's cost of all that. Well, the challenge you run into with those things is that with the Affordable Care Act, they put a cap on what the members' out-of-pocket cost could be. Right now it's around $7,000. So that really limited the value of what people could get at for those patient assistance programs, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then lastly, there's really the manufacturer's specialty coupons, right? They're primarily on specialty drugs. As Michael mentioned, there's about 85 plus drugs that have some sort of coupon associated with them, and typically that's kind of more marketing money, right? It's money up front that the drug manufacturers are offering to help people start that therapy. Again, it's getting at these high deductible costs or the high cost of specialty copays. Usually there's like a monthly or an annual limit to them though. They don't go on forever. So usually they're allowed so much a month or on an annual basis so much that they'll actually contribute. So the question is though, if the member's copay isn't as large as the coupon is worth, what happens to the balance of that? Right, and how do the plans actually get to take advantage of that? And that's something we'll discuss as we go further on as well. So the next slide is really an example of this retail copay coupon, and how that really actually increases costs. So what we're talking about here is the member comes into the retail pharmacy with a prescription for a multi-source brand drug, a brand drug that has a generic available for it. And let's say that cost is $350 is the AWP of it. The plan has got a discount of 16 off, and there's a brand copay of $25, right? But the generic alternative that's available only has an AWP of $90. It's getting a discount of AWP minus 75%, and the member only has to pay a $10 copay. But in this case, right, the manufacturer is offering a $15 coupon. So when the pharmacy processes this claim, they run it through the system for that brand name drug. The brand's cost of that to the employer would really be, $294, which is what $350 times, the discount is, minus the copay. So the brand manufacturer, the employer would actually be paying $269 if they got the brand drug. If they would have gotten the generic though, their cost would have only been $22.50, which is $90 minus the discount of 75 off, minus the $10. The employer would only pay $12.50. But because the members got a coupon for $25, from the member's perspective, they get the generic, that brand drug, that multi-source brand drug, for the generic cost to them. They pay the $10 coupon or copay, and they get the brand drug. It's really, so the cost to the members is the same as the generic. But what that does is that actually increases the brand cost to the employer by $256. So that's where these retail copay coupons really start to increase costs. So what can you do about it? Right? That's really on the next slide here. We talk about some of the things you can try to do to combat these retail copays is to put in a percentage copay on your retail brands. Right? If you're paying 20% of the cost or 30% of the cost of the retail brands, right, then the value of that copay becomes less significant, and there's, again, an incentive from the member to get the generic. You can put in dispense as written penalties, which is really something that says, if the member wants the multi-source brand and there's a generic available, the cost between those two gets shifted to the member. Instead of you, the employer, picking it up, the member's got to pick up that cost, right? And that really helps encourage the member to take the generic as opposed to picking up the cost difference. What you could do, and what some PBMs do, is they actually exclude these multi-source brands from their formulary. A number of you may now be on a formulary that has formulary exclusions to it. A lot of those exclusions may be these multi-source brands that have these coupons associated with it, so that the member can't get it. It's just not covered anymore, which helps lower costs. Or you can put in some sort of step therapy program that says, before you get that multi-source brand drug, you have to try the generic first. So these 4 strategies are kind of ways to get at these retail copay coupons to help you minimize your overall cost of these programs.
I think before we talk a little bit more about patient assistance programs, we did want to ask a question of the people in the audience. Kelly, do you want to put that question up? And the question is are you currently taking advantage of copay assistance or manufacturer coupon programs? We're just kind of curious about how many of you are actually taking advantage of these types of programs right now, which is not the retail, which we just covered, which is totally different, but on the manufacturer coupon programs and copay assistance. So yeah, that's probably why most of you are on this call. It probably looks like it's about 80% that are not. Some of you are, and some of you don't know. So okay, we'll let go on for a little bit longer here. Okay, so about 3/4, about 75% are not, 14% are, and 10% don't know. So that's kind of probably kind of what we thought. So again, as Greg just covered when we're talking about the retail copay coupons, those are bad things in some respects when it comes to employers and the cost. And if you're not aware of the impact that those retail copay coupons have, as Greg said, there are certain things you should consider doing and to try to limit your spend. Patient assistance programs are a little bit different, as we talked about. These really kind of came about in the 90s and 2000. A lot of these, as we talked about, are distributed through what are called 501c3 organizations or charitable organizations. That could be through pharma, could be through, as Greg mentioned, the CF Foundation. There's a lot of different foundations that are available to help members who cannot afford a particular drug. A lot of these are based upon, there could be income need, there could be medical necessity need. And I think the biggest thing, and it's interesting in terms of how PBMs approach this, and I think that each of you on this call should probably ask your PBM's position in terms of informing members on patient assistance programs. There are some PBMs that want the member to specifically ask for that. They don't necessarily volunteer that these types of programs are available. There are some that are much more aggressive in terms of helping members have access to patient assistance programs to help them. And I think particularly with the consumer-driven health plans and high-deductible health plans, and particularly if you're an employer that have some members who have low-paying jobs. I mean, if they're earning $10, $15 an hour, they probably would need the help particularly on certain specialty drugs. It's interesting on one of the slides we have before we have a chance to kind of go through it, but spending by the 10 large pharma patient assistance programs increased in 2001 from $376 million to $6.1 billion in 2014. And a lot of that, of course, remember, as I mentioned earlier, you had Medicare Part D that came about, but that's a huge increase if you think about it over a 13-year period of time, from $376 million to $6.1 billion. in terms of assistance that's available through patient assistance programs to help members cover the cost of their prescription drugs. And as of 2015, pharmaceutical manufacturer patient assistance programs accounted for 7 of the 10 largest U.S. grant-making foundations as ranked by annual giving. So there is a lot of money out there for patient assistance programs through these types of 501c3 non-profit charitable foundations that people or members can take advantage of if they meet certain income, medical necessity, and potential, depending upon what your plan does or does not cover. It's also interesting, and again, something to look at, in your state, because there are 19 different state governments that also offer some form of patient assistance programs as well. Now, yes, they're a payer of last resort in terms of, what may or may not be available, and particularly on some Medicaid patients that you may have under your plan or you may not. But I think that, clearly looking at what may be available through your state government in terms of patient assistance programs for your members is also important. Again, I think that, having members take their drugs, and that's always been the dilemma on high deductible health plans. Yes, it helps plans in terms of some aspects of not, covering the cost of certain medications up front, but if the member's not taking those drugs, it may have an impact on your medical side. So again, trying to help these members, take these medications and help them financially, or having either your PBM work with them, the manufacturer of the foundation, is important. And again, remember that the patients assistance programs don't necessarily have the same anti-kickback implications as a coupon does, because you're actually helping somebody to help get that particular drug from a health standpoint. But again, I think that because of the Affordable Care Act, there are limits, whether it be on an individual as well as a family, in terms of the amount of assistance that can be provided. But up to those federal limits, I think it's important that trying to help your members, if they need that help, to get those particular prescription drugs, because it may have an impact on your medical side. The next one is we're going to spend a lot more time talking about especially manufacturer coupons. And again, a lot of this is because members, they can't afford it, the drug, they're not going to qualify for a patient's assistance program, but they're still looking for ways to lower their costs because they're out of pocket. They, whether it's $4,000, $6,000, $7,500, whatever your out of pocket deductible is, if you have a high deductible health plan. And so these members are still looking for ways to lower their costs, and of course you can't go a night without seeing some pharmaceutical manufacturer running an ad on television about some copay assistance or coupon program that's available, and a lot of these are for specialty drugs, which are high cost. And so it's members, they see these and they can say, oh, I can get this for $0 copay or a $5 copay or a $10. What can I do to get that drug if I'm on that drug? And it will save the member money. But what happens is it does have an effect on the plan in terms of plan costs, where the member is using most of that coupon for their costs, and Greg will go through some examples here about how it impacts the employer. But again, the important thing also, unlike the PAP programs, is that the specially manufactured coupons, there are no financial requirements. Anybody, it doesn't make any difference who they are, have the ability to get those coupons. And one of the things that a coupon does, and if you're not careful from an employer, it will end up costing you more money, because these manufacturer coupons allow the member to meet their out-of-pocket maximums or deductibles that much quicker with minimal actual costs that they're paying, which is really not what the employer intended when they set up their copays and deductibles, with the idea being that member should pay that amount that should go toward that deductible before the employer has to pick up 100% of the cost. And the other thing to remember is, unlike the patient's assistance programs, is that special manufacturer coupons do have restrictions with respect to the federal anti-kickback statutes as it relates to federally funded programs such as Medicare Part D, and specially manufactured, coupons are not supposed to be used in conjunction with those federal programs.
So one of the key things that Michael mentioned there is really these coupons help people meet their out-of-pocket copays. But if they're in a front-end deductible program, those coupons go towards that deductible in a lot of cases. So even though you may have $3,000, $4,000 front-end deductible, if the coupon comes in that's worth, say, $1,000, it'll pay $1,000 of that deductible. It's not really the member paying it. And that's what's kind of surprising in a lot of cases, that clients are in some respects unaware that these coupons are being used by the members and especially pharmacies to buy their, to pay for their copays and to meet their deductibles and really aren't incurring little or no out-of-pocket costs. So, they end up meeting their deductibles on the front end without really incurring that, and then having the plan, employers, start to pick up, 100% of the cost once they've met their out-of-pocket deductible. So that's really the challenge. This slide here kind of gives you just an example of some of the drugs, right, that there are manufacturer coupons for. And these coupons are significant. A lot of times, they could be $500, $1,000, sometimes $25,000 for the year. There's, like I mentioned before, sometimes there's caps on how much they can be, the dollar amounts of them. But there's significant dollar coupons that really help members kind of meet their out-of-pocket costs. So the challenge you run into, though, is that, how do you put in some controls that kind of limit you, the employer's costs, when members are using these things. So,
yeah, but before we go on to that, on this slide in terms of the specialty drugs, this is just a sample of different manufacturers that do have manufacturer coupons, and the reason we picked these particular drugs is that my guess is that these probably are in your top 10 or top 20 list somewhere. If you look at your annual report from your PBM, if you look at these, and some of these, even if you're not familiar, they sound familiar because, as I said, a lot of these manufacturers are running ads on television. So you can kind of see, the connection of what is going on, or why they're trying to, not only are they marketing these drugs, but they're also trying, pharma's giving manufacturer coupons. But again, I want to go back to something I said earlier. You really need to ask your PBM, what manufacturer coupons, specialty drug manufacturer coupons, are they aware of? And the reason why, particularly the bigger PBMs, own their own specialty pharmacies, and they know, which of these specialty manufacturer coupons are available. And it's interesting, there's no one size fits all, which I just find interesting that there are some PBMs that will be very aggressive and they'll go after all 85 that they're aware of. There's some they'll say, well, we only know about 19 that we work with. But part of that is as Greg will get into here a little bit about some of the strategies, but it's important that you at least know what the base is in terms of what you should be working with your PBM in terms of extracting the value of these manufacturer coupons for the plan. So that's important that you find that out. So I think that, whether you're doing an RFP, whether you're in the middle of a contract, part of it is finding out what manufacturer coupons that PBM is aware of that they can then assist you in going after in terms of helping lower your spend. So there are quite a few that are available, and like I said, some PBMs are aware of more coupons than others, but particularly if they have their own specialty pharmacy, is worthwhile for you to ask them that question. We did have another poll question we wanted to ask about. Kelly, can you put that up? Yeah, the question is before today, did you understand, or do you understand the financial impact that these special coupons have on your pharmacy benefit plan costs? Okay, so it looks like about 60% know about the impact, 40%, about 38% didn't understand, and 3% didn't. So yeah, actually that's good. I mean, it's a little bit higher than I thought in terms of the yes, but that's good, and that you're aware of what these programs can mean. So so now we'll have Greg talk a little bit about the different specialty coupon programs and the in terms of what's available. So I'll let Greg kind of walk through those.
And as Michael mentioned, a lot of these programs, they'll vary by PBM. So depending on which PBM you use, their ability to administer some of these programs is going to vary. And it's also going to matter which specialty pharmacy you're accessing, right? If you're going through perhaps your PBM specialty pharmacy, they'll probably have ability to access a lot more of these coupons than some of the smaller specialty pharmacies that are going through, just because of their relationships, the volumes that they have and coming through. But remember, we talked about that these coupons are helping people meet their out-of-pocket costs. Because when the claim comes through, what happens is a lot of times these copay coupons are being applied after the claim adjudicates. So if someone's got a $100 copay, and when the specialty pharmacy processes the claim through, it comes through as if they have a $100 copay, and then they access the coupon to pay for that copay. But the system still thinks that the member paid $100, and that $100 then is going towards their out-of-pocket costs. It's going towards the value of their deductible. So that's kind of one of the levels that PBMs have put in place. It's called an out-of-pocket protection program, where they only allow the out-of-pockets, the deductibles and things, to only reflect what the member actually paid. So it doesn't reflect the total value of that coupon and went through. It only affects what the member actually paid. So if the member paid $0 on their copay because of that coupon, then their out-of-pocket accumulator in their system doesn't reflect any dollar amounts. It'll show $0 there. That's one of the kind of key programs that some PBMs have the ability to do, not all. We keep continuing to push more and more of the PBMs to put this in place to help protect it. The next level of that then becomes a variable copay program. So in addition to the out-of-pocket protection, the variable copay program essentially happens is that the PBM will raise the member's copay up to the level of the coupon. So say, for example, a member's got a $100 copay, and the manufacturer's offering a $1,000 coupon, they'll raise that copay up to meet the $1,000, right? So they'll take the full value of that. And I have an example that'll kind of go through it, how that whole variable copay program significantly will help you, the payer, the employer, lower the claim cost for that. And then there is this extended kind of coupon share program, which is really some PBMs have partnered with a third-party vendor to try to go out and get access to more of the specially manufactured coupons, and they kind of share in the savings of that on a quarterly basis. So that is something that's kind of a value add and more extensive to try to go out and get access to really all those 85 or so coupons. But there's a cost in those kind of programs to you, because a lot of times they share it. Some PBMs will be, like Michael said, are aggressive. They'll go out and get as many of these coupons as they can and not charge the clients anything for it. Other PBMs kind of use an outside vendor to help them with these programs, and those do end up being costly to the client. So this out-of-pocket protection, we talked a little bit about it, right? It's really talking about the accumulator. So the members accumulate. Every time they get a prescription filled, the system looks as if they have a copay, and that copay gets applied to the accumulator. If it's a front-end deductible, that deductible amount gets applied to the accumulator, and it continues to grow until they meet that. And that accumulator could be $1,000, could be $5,000, whatever it is, up to the Affordable Care Act maximum for the out-of-pocket costs for them. But in the out-of-pocket protection plan, the PBM makes an adjustment to the claim in the accumulators in the system after the claim adjudicates. So they go in and manually adjust the accumulator, the copay amount that's applied to the accumulator after the claim processes so that it only reflects the dollar amount that the member actually paid, right? So it kind of prevents that member from reaching their deductible or their out-of-pocket sooner with dollars being paid by the drug manufacturers as opposed to them actually incurring something out of the pocket. But a key thing is the member needs to be notified through their SPD that they're only going to get credit for the actual amounts they were paid. Because even though they'll think they have a $100 copay and they actually only pay $0 or $5 for it, they need to be notified in the SPD that they'll only get credit on their accumulator file for what they actually have paid, not what their set copay would have been. Now, a variable copay program, as I mentioned before, what that is the PBM, the specialty pharmacy, right, increases the copay to match that manufacturer's coupon amount. So, and typically the coupons, exceed the member's copay, depending on what kind of structures you guys have on the phone with regard to your specialty copays. We definitely recommend having specific specialty copays and not treating those copays as if they were a brand drug, but really setting them much higher than that. Typically we'll recommend a $75 minimum specialty copay and maybe a $250 maximum copay with 25% cost share in between there. So the least they would pay is $75, the most they would pay is $250, right, and 25%. So if the cost of the claim is more than, the specialty drug is more than $1,000, the most they would pay is $250. But that $250 copay is what, if they paid it out of pocket, would go towards that accumulator. And what the variable copay program does is it raises that up. It's a different type of program, and it'll raise the value of that copay up to the value of what that manufacturer's coupon is. So the member's either going to pay $0 for it, or some manufacturers actually require them to pay something, say $5 or something. They require them to pay a minimum amount. But then the value of this variable copay program is that the balance of that coupon, say they only have a $100 copay, specialty copay, and the coupon's worth $1,000, there's $900 that potentially gets unused unless the variable copay program goes in place. In that case, the member's copay goes to $1,000, and the full value of that coupon gets used and gets applied to the client's out-of-pocket costs, right? So that's really something important. But again, the SPD, right, it's got to be modified if you want to take advantage of that variable copay program to make sure that the member understands what all is going to go through on that whole piece. So here's an example of kind of what I've been talking about. So say we got a specialty drug, it's got an ingredient cost of $4,500, which is pretty typical for a lot of specialty drugs. The average specialty drug now runs about $3,500 to $4,000 per claim is pretty typical for those now. So, and if the member's specialty copay is $100, right, your plan cost for that would be $4,400, right? You'd have $4,500 thing less the member's copay. You'd have to pay that $4,400. But in this case, if you have a manufacturer coupon of $1,000, if you didn't use the variable copay program, only $100 of that $1,000 would end up getting used, right? $100 would go towards the member's copay, of which they may be required to pay $5 of it, and you'd still be obligated to pay that $4,400. But in the variable copay program, the PBM will increase that member's copay to $1,000. Now the member would actually have to still pay that $5, and their out-of-pocket would only reflect $5, but the net cost to the client, since the full value of that coupon is being used, is only $3,500. So that it's really a way to take advantage of the full value of these manufacturer coupons that are being offered in the marketplace. Now again, the SPD has got to be modified to make sure that the members are aware that these programs are going to be put in place, and that there aren't all PBMs that have the ability to do this. Some PBMs have this capability, others don't. We continually push the PBMs to get this logic coded into their system so that they have the ability to do not only the out-of-pocket protection and then go and make adjustments to those out-of-pockets, but also have the variable copay option where they can take full advantage of these manufacturer coupons as they arise.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that, you know, for the plan to be able to take advantage of these coupons by doing a variable copay is certainly worth considering. And again, I think that, you know, when you can reduce your plan costs, like on this example right here, by $900, I mean, again, every little bit helps, even though on a, you know, $4,500 drug, it's just a way for you as a payer to lower costs, and it's taking advantage or using things that are available for you to do that, to lower your specialty, you know, drug costs. We're going to have, I think, some time to take some questions, but, you know, thought we had enough slides, but it looks like but never know. But let's just kind of do a couple of key takeaways here as it relates to copay assistance and manufacturer coupon programs. And again, the reason we did this seminar today, or this webinar, was really to kind of help people be more aware or become more aware of patient assistance programs and coupon programs that are available to help manage their specialty drug costs. I mean, as you can see, there are different things you can do that, and it does take, you know, working with your consultant or working with your PBM or whoever, but really kind of taking a step back and looking at not only the patient assistance programs about helping, you know, employees that may not be high earners or high income earners, and helping them if you have high deductible health plans or if they opt for that. And I think that, as we said, talked about earlier, about plans taking advantage of the coupon programs as well. I think this next point is also important. It's monitoring the usage of the coupons and the patient's assistance programs to see if they actually contribute to adherence to potentially unaffordable medications. Because I think that, you know, that's, you know, if people are you know, taking advantage of either the PAP or the manufacturer coupon, and is helping lower your drug spend, that's great. I mean, I think that's, you know, it's important to look at, you know, how your members are they being impacted by these programs, and keeping track of that, you know, with your PBM, I think, is important to help you see if you are lowering your overall medical costs. I think that as biosimilars begin to enter the market, I think that, in our opinion, we think there's going to be a lot more when it comes to specialty manufacturer coupons. I think that, again, both the originator brand manufacturer of a specialty drug, as well as the manufacturer of the biosimilars, are probably going to offer a lot more money in manufacturer coupons to gain market share. So I think that, you know, thinking right now about putting these types of plans in place for 18, 19, or down the road are important, because I think that they will become more important. They'll be used to a greater extent by manufacturers to increase their market share. Again, I can't stress enough, it really is understanding what your PBM's capabilities are when it comes to these manufacturing programs or coupon programs in coordination of patients' assistance programs. You know, and if you have a smaller PBM or more boutique PBM, you know, a lot of them are just, they're not quite where some of the larger PBMs are. I think that they understand that, you know, people are becoming more aware of this, but I think that it's really important for you to really kind of pick up the phone and say, hey, what do you do in these, or what can you do to assist in terms of helping our members who may have difficulty paying for drug? You know, what can you do either through patients' assistance programs, and also what do you do on the manufacturer coupons to help us, you know, lower costs, or helping us use those in a way that, you know, benefit us as well as the member. So, and like we said, everybody is a little bit different. Everybody's coming out with different programs, and even some of the, you know, the PBMs you would think that would have these programs are still kind of in the process of developing it and not quite sure what they're going to do. But they're trying, because I think they understand that people find these to be very popular. The next thing is taking action to ensure that the members out-of-pocket accurately reflect the manufacturer, you know, coupons, as Greg's example pointed out. You know, you just want to make sure that that member is only getting credit toward their out-of-pocket maximums for what they have paid. And I can tell you, we had a client, we had a meeting earlier this year where they have high deductible health plans, and we were meeting with the PBM and kind of going through it, and it was shocking in terms of the amount that the cost, how much the plan's cost had increased because of the coupons that were being used by members. And basically came to the conclusion we couldn't share this certainly with people in the C-suite, so we got it worked through because they didn't know. I mean, it was a fairly large client that was not aware of how these manufacturer coupons were impacting their clients or impacting their drug spend because their members were just running through their deductible and out of pocket so much quicker, and then they were having to pick up the cost. So, if you're an employer that have a significant number of members, you should look at that because it may be surprising in terms of really what you're picking up in terms of this, the cost after your members meet their out-of-pocket maximums, and it could be surprising.
And you'd have to work with your specialty pharmacy because that's really who knows that value, right? The specialty pharmacy is going to be the one that, after the claim adjudicates, reconciles or coordinates the value of that coupon. So the specialty pharmacy has a pretty good idea of how much the coupons have been used to pay for the members' copays. The PBM, depending on which PBM you're using, may not be aware of that or may not have any sort of control over the specialty pharmacy that's actually processing the coupon. So there's coordination in there that's got to happen, and it's pretty important because it is shocking to understand that, some people will set their specialty copays really high, say $500, $1,000 on a specialty copay, but if the coupons are paying essentially the full value of that copay all the time, it's kind of defeating the purpose for the manufacturer, for the employer to set those copays that high because the manufacturers are picking up that entire copay cost.
And the last thing is really considering implementing a variable copay program, and I think particularly if you're a non-grandfather plan, and yes, you may have different copays, and I think that what's important with developing the variable copay program is understanding, one, what your formulary is, with your particular PBM, what is your formulary, and what specialty drugs are covered under that formulary. That's the first thing you need to really kind of think about. The next step is really talking to your PBM about, okay, based upon the specialty drugs that are on your formulary, what manufacturer coupons are you aware of that are out there, and what are the values of those coupons? Because then you can look at, from a plan design standpoint, what do I do for a copay based upon, one, the formulary, and two, the coupons that are available, especially manufacturer coupons that are available for specialty drugs, to then help you design your plan and your benefit plan in terms of what those copays should be. Again, structure them in such a way that it really meets the intent and purpose of what your plan is in terms of what your expectation is for the member to pay a particular amount toward their cost share, where it's not being covered by a manufacturer coupon and they're running through their out-of-pocket maximums that much quicker. So it is a process that you have to kind of go through to make sure that if you're going to do the variable copay program, to kind of match that up, and it may change, and quite frankly, what you may do in 2018 may be different than what you do in 2020 or 2021, because these programs may go away, but you need to have that flexibility in your plan design to say, okay, at least for now, on an annual basis, I'm willing to do this because it means that I have the ability to reduce my plan cost. And it could be that, as specialty drug manufacturer coupons become more prevalent, they could be higher amounts depending upon what happens with other manufacturers and biosimilars in the market. And you may need to look at this on a variable basis, or on an annual basis. But I think that understanding all these different little pieces together, and yes, it takes time, it's work, but it's worthwhile when 50% of your costs are going to be on specialty, even though it's only 1 to 2% of claims. But again, what we're trying to tell you is to take advantage of whatever you can to help you lower that spend. And there are things that are out there, and again, I think that And a lot of this, I think, is also just kind of communicating to members. I mean, one, you have to do it through the SPD because you have to advise them of what is going on. So that's one way of communicating to the member about what that change is. But I think that, and that's the thing we've seen. I think that sometimes members just think, well, wait a second, I don't get all this, and why am I having to pay the cost of some of this drug? And I think it's the employer, the benefits department just says, well, no. I mean, our plan is, our expectation is you're going to pay X. You don't get a free ride and toward the cost of these drugs. And I think that for those if you have a PBM that is where you have a patient's assistance program available, where they may not feel that they can tell the member up front that hey, do you need this? Need help? You probably should think about, if you're getting a report of a member that is new to therapy on a specialty drug, which I'm hoping you're getting, that you may want to communicate to that member or somebody, say, hey, look, if you can't afford, and you probably have a fairly good idea based upon who your employees are, especially if you're running benefits in your company, about whether or not somebody may need to have assistance to help pay that cost of drug, but just sending them a little letter saying, if you need financial help, it's available, talk to your specialty pharmacy, and let them know if you need assistance, financial assistance to help cover the out-of-pocket cost if you have a high deductible health plan, blah, 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 to cover that. Or even if you don't have a high deductible health plan, there are some, employers are setting their specialty, copays at $1,500 or $1,000, whatever it is. I mean, for some employees, that's cost prohibitive for them to be able to get that drug. So, it's communication. It's letting them know that's available. It's letting them know, how you're going to handle this, from a cost standpoint. And our experience is that most employees, once they understand, what is actually occurring, is they may initially object, but they understand, and they are fine with what the employer is doing, particularly if it's a variable copay program where the employer can help lower the plan costs by taking advantage of these programs. So we have about 5 minutes here. I don't know if anybody has any questions that you want to pose. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you so much, Michael and Greg. We have had a few questions come in. I think you've answered a couple of them, and also active chatter and people giving opinions. One specific question that came in earlier: is there a way PBMs can track if employees are using these types of coupons? I think you said yes, they should be tracking, and you should work with your specialty pharmacy if your PBM isn't.
Yeah, it's really the specialty pharmacy that will know if these coupons are being used. So that's a lot of times our recommendation is that you use an exclusive specialty pharmacy, that you have one pharmacy that you're driving all of your specialty claims into, so that you can get a better handle on how many coupons are being used, what the value of those coupons are, and also then have that specialty pharmacy relay that information to the PBM so they can make adjustments to the members' accumulators, right? So they're not getting credit, on their accumulator for a copay that they really never paid.
Yeah, the retail coupons are a little more difficult. They're
pretty hard.
That's hard to keep track of.
That's why we gave you kind of some plan design changes to help minimize the use of those.
Yeah, that's more difficult because it's more of the coordination and behind the scenes between the retail pharmacy and the pharmaceutical manufacturer, which make it difficult for either the PBM or the client to keep track of. But if you implement certain plan designs, you don't have to worry about that, because it's going to penalize a member for using that coupon.
Oops. I've got another question here. So this one is: are you recommending people use out-of-pocket protection against the member out-of-pocket, deductible, or both? Per your comment that the cards have limits, could a member max out the card early to mid-year? If you put this program against the deductible, what will happen then?
Yeah, so you really want the programs to, the out-of-pocket protection to apply to the deductible and their out-of-pocket maximum, right? Those should be an accumulator that gets counted towards both. you really only want the accumulator in the system to reflect what the member actually paid. So, and not let the coupon help pay for that member's deductible, allow them to meet that deductible faster, without actually incurring any cost, because that kind of defeats the benefit of putting the deductible in place, and having a cost share aspect of it. If you have a third party, a manufacturer coupon that's paying that deductible for the member, they're not really incurring that cost. So you really want that out-of-pocket protection to provide not only to the copay, but the deductible as well.
Okay. Well, with that, gentlemen, I think, thank you so much for a wonderful webinar. I think that's probably all the time we've got for questions today. But certainly, ladies and gentlemen, we will send an email out tomorrow with the link to the recording, as well as HRCI and SHRM certification information if you're interested in that. And also, Michael and Greg are happy to field any questions and have any further conversations with you after this webinar. You can reach out to them. Gentlemen, are you going to send an email tomorrow, or do you want me to include your contact information in our email tomorrow that we send to the attendees?
You can just include our contact information in what you send out, Kelly.
Okay. Well, wonderful. And if you like what you heard, please consider joining us in 2018. Michael and Greg will be at all 4 in 2018. We're looking forward to it. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.